Hello everybody, Vlog, the freelance teacher. I have to cut this one a little short. I apologize in advance. I have an 8th period English 3 class, so I can only talk for a little while. But I do want to talk to you about a topic talking about schooling and students and today's world, it's hard to distill some of the things that have gone wrong or are not focused on, but are imminently accessible. And what I'm talking to you about today in today's GED report, remember, you can get a GED in 2 days and you have a high school diploma. Your high school is 2 million minutes. So you can do, instead of doing 2 million minutes, you can do 2 days and get a high school equivalency diploma. That's the genesis of the GED report. Let's get to these topics and do them quickly and see about getting just the meat and potatoes and no fluff. So I'm talking to you today about focus and the phone. And this topic manifests itself in a few ways because you have education as something that practically everybody, and I would say every parent, wants for himself and for their children. So you talk about what people prioritize, and they talk about having intelligent children who can communicate and they can learn and they're able to be extremely literate and have math and science skills that can get them to have, at minimum, a comfortable life, if not make a lot of money or become a substantial person and allow themselves to live in a way that makes their parents proud and makes them a functioning and contributing member of society. Well, one of the things that parents have realized, and I think many adults have realized, and the smart teenagers have realized this, is that the idea of being able to focus has gotten lost. And I'm not one to blame technology on very many things. I like technology. I'm sitting in my studio now, my soundproof studio, doing a video log, a vlog with you, just because I have my phone. I have a 3-year-old iPhone, and I can do a video cast to you because of technology. And you'll see this on YouTube and BitChute, and that's an amazing thing. And even if it gets anywhere from 50 views, which is normal, to 31,000 views, which is my most viewed video, that has never been possible before. So I like technology. Don't think I'm trashing the phone or technology, but the phone has ruined much of young people's ability to focus. And that is the ability to focus is a core concept that without it, I can't think of anything that can be done well without the ability to focus long term. And I have seen, and I've been in the school game since 1996, I have seen students' focus levels plummet, especially since the advent of the smartphone. So you have the iPhone coming out, let's say 10, 11, 12 years ago. I think it came out in 06 or 07. And I believe it's 07 now that I think about it. So we've had 11 years now with iPhones. And even calling it a phone. My direct supervisor correctly labeled this to us a couple of years ago. I hadn't put the words together in my head this way. But he said it's not a phone that students are carrying around. It's a computer that they're carrying around. And that's true. And then on top of that, it's a computer with apps. So the app idea is even more accessible to having to go to a computer, go and open the browser, go to the internet. No, this is even more easy than doing that. You have it in your pocket and you have an app that you tap once and you are connected and you're in. So instant gratification is in the forefront. Now, these people let's remember our ancient Greek philosophers. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is a habit, meaning what you do all the time is what you're going to get good at. So, for example, I looked, for whatever reason, I happen to like baseball statistics. So for hours on end as a high school student, and to some degree in college, but mostly as a high school student, I just buried myself in baseball statistics. I just can't, to this day, I can't help myself. Thank God baseballreference.com didn't exist when I was a teenager, because that's all I would do is look at baseball stats. So to this day, I can talk to you about the Yankees beating the Reds in 1961, or the Baltimore Orioles should have won 3 World Series, 69, 70, and 71, but they only won one. They only won the World Series in 1970. So these kinds of things you can get good at if you focus on them. So think about what people are routinely doing, habitually doing today. They're looking at their phone, going on apps, and doing whatever it is they're on the phone. Well, okay, the phone is a wonderful, amazing informational tool. It's also a tool for games. It's also a tool for nonsense. So young people in particular, now you're seeing adults as well, they do nothing repeatedly except the things they do on their phone. So are you burdened with a huge, gigantic, if you're an adult, an email inbox where every time you open it, there are 17 new emails, yet you checked email 2 hours ago? You're answering email all day. Is that a productive part of your job? Maybe. There probably are jobs where answering email is what you're supposed to do. Okay. But I suspect that there aren't that many jobs out there where answering email is what you're paid to do or is something that you're supposed to do well. I have friends in other schools in this county, and they get buried in email because every parent has a special child who's a unicorn, and the parent wants detailed email responses all the time. And all they do is they spend hours a day on email. That's hours they're not planning, hours they're not grading homework, hours they're not dealing with students, hours they can't dedicate to after-school activities. So that's just an example of an adult being hamstrung and handcuffed by the immediacy of the action on the phone. What about young people? They're not answering email on their phone. They're doing other things on their phone. You can let your mind wander with that one. But there are apps and games and time wasters, and many of them are addicting. And there are people in these high-tech companies, and they pay an army of people to do nothing but analyze the psychology behind their game, behind their app, behind their coded software that can get eyeballs to attach to it. People smarter than you are. And not only that, let's say you're pretty bright. They've got an army of people who are trained on your teenage son or daughter's mind to pull them away from something useful and focus on something else. So think about that. Think about what you're up against. Over the last 10 years, an army of people, legions of people have grown in the high-tech, high-dollar industry that are paid to do nothing but get your eyeballs or your child's eyeballs off of something that, if they were to focus on it, would be more productive. Not only that, the idea of focus in general. Look at all of the apps that people have on their phones or their iPads. Tons of stuff. Lots of things. If it were one or two, those apps, those games, those time wasters, those things that the people would do, they'd get good at it. But that's not the case. The ability to focus on its own, which is a skill, is being eroded as well. So you realize it's not really the phone, it's self-discipline and focus that has been destroyed over the last 10 years. And focusing on something for a lengthy amount of time is a skill that can be taught. There are a lot of ways to do this. Oftentimes parents decide to punish and say, look, you can't have your phone anymore or your smart device because you're not doing your homework or you're not getting good grades in school. These kinds of things. That's one way to do it. There probably are other ways to do it. I try to foster schoolwork and I try to find useful schoolwork for teenagers, and I'll have the schoolwork done through the phone. We have a program called Schoology that I happen to like, and work in class can be done through Schoology, and I think it's quite helpful. I think it's a great thing, and the student is now focused and practicing the skill of focus while using the phone. So yes, the phone is a distracting element, and today's technology distracts and it takes attention away. And I don't know how many different ways I can say distracting, but there's so many things getting in the way, so many things that allow the instant gratification gene to be energized, that the phone is not, the thing there in front of you is not necessarily the enemy per se. It's the inability for the person to focus. So I think it's the fix, which is a very difficult fix, is a way to find something. The first thing I think of is find something on the electronic device that the person enjoys doing or reading about. That's one thing to do. The other thing to try to do is find reading material that the student enjoys. And that doesn't always work. I remember thinking that students in the olden days before the smartphone would be eager to sit and read a long form article from Sports Illustrated on a sport they enjoy. Not really. That was not the norm. It worked sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time. So finding something that is a long-term commitment in itself is a way to engender and teach focus. But I just urge you guys all to not take your eye off the ball and think that, oh, that electronic device is the enemy. It's only part of it. The powers that be, the top of the pyramid, my conspiracy theory is, and it is a theory because I don't have any super duper proof, not necessarily a memo or anything, but my theory is that they don't really mind that, and let's talk about America, that Americans can't focus. I don't think it bothers them at all. I think they actually prefer it, because then you can't analyze anything. And my last example, and I like to prove my points, is a Facebook post that a high school friend of mine put up the other day about how a guy burned a church down to the ground, a historic church, burnt to a crisp, and someone burned it down and wrote, "Vote Trump" on the church. And it had 5 or 6 comments, 6 or 7 of those angry Facebook, face. And I said, and something in the back of my head was like, this doesn't sound right. And I think I remember this. Right? There's a Facebook post from 5 days ago. The event that was posted on Facebook, right, which was just the headline, church burned to the ground, vote Trump, written on the side. There was a black guy, last name of McClinton, ironically, in 2016. This guy burned his own church. He was a parish member, burned it to the ground and scrawled "Vote Trump" on it. Now, it's obviously somebody who's a sick individual or craving attention, and he got it. For 15 minutes, this guy had a lot of fame as the guy who burned the church. Obviously, was just trying to sway the message or get in the news or something. But it was a wacky, bizarre event from 2 years ago. And I have intelligent friends. I think I do anyway. And they didn't read anything except the headline. I didn't read just the headline. And they put a comment and put a like or dislike or angry face on it. They didn't focus for more than 15 seconds on the title of the post with the image of the burnt church, and they were like, look at Trump and what he did. Look at his rhetoric and what his rhetoric does. Look at this terrible event. Trump and anybody who follows him is a bad person, is morally repellent, because look at what those people do. On a 2-year-old article from a black guy named McClinton, of all things, who burned his own church to the floor. Now, you talk about not focusing. There are no teenagers involved in this story. There are no high schools involved in this story. This is not coming from the bad neighborhood. This is a Facebook post, college-educated people on social media. And you talk about a lack of focus and not caring about putting effort into any kind of analysis. Those are adults. So that's my case, is the ability to focus. If you're unable to focus and you're the person who just clicks on something on social media without digging even a minute, maybe you need to practice your levels of focus even more. Maybe you need to ask yourself, hey, I'm looking at this headline. Is that true? Is that headline telling the truth? Is this anything that makes sense? Because if you're able to do that, and I talk to this and teach teenagers this, maybe if you're an adult hearing this, maybe you take the advice too. Maybe just the quick clickbait headline, lack of focus strategy isn't going to work for you. You know it doesn't work for teenagers because I hear you complaining about teenagers all the time. Well, then why are you doing the same thing? So practice what you preach. Focus. Spend time on something productive rather than the instant gratification world we are in. And if you can do that and you can impart that knowledge and that skill, that teachable skill of focusing to others, then we have a chance. But if you don't do that, then we're just going to get more of the same, and the same brand of chaos and the same brand of nonsense that we see all over the place. That's it for today. Next time I'm going to talk about John Taylor Gatto, who died on the 25th of October, a couple of days ago. He changed my life and my career, so I'm going to talk about him next time. So let's connect soon and discuss that. Take care. No homework today.